Welcome back Digifans to the third installation of my BT9 limited review, where I break down every card in the set based on its sealed potential to help you dominate at pre-release. If you haven't yet seen my previous videos in this series, be sure to go check them out to catch up on all the common and uncommon cards in the set, as well as a breakdown of my ranking system. Today, we move on to the juicy stuff with a look at all of the rare cards. Let's dive in. Starting us off, we have Digimon X. This card gets a B rank due to Blitz being a pretty useful ability on an 8k Digimon, but with an X antibody underneath, it can accelerate all the way to A, able to strike down your opponent's Digimon very effectively and force them to hide back in the breeding area. Next up, we have Digimon X, who also earns a B. This is a decent card in general that disencourages your opponent from attacking, adds a bonus to attacking their Digimon, or cheapen the cost of your removal. It's also a good payoff for the X antibody card, allowing you to hurt the opponent's board and gain some memory out of it. Digimon X has access to 1 turn of security attack +1, a solid keyword in sealed and enough to earn it the rank of B, even without the DP boost from having an X antibody in its sources. Dino Rexmon is a great card that doesn't require much setup and earns itself an A. This is a pretty solid defensive wall against a lot of your opponent's weaker attackers and can really slow down their aggression. Honestly, if there weren't so many cards with over 6k DP, this would probably make it to S rank. Jellymon unfortunately only earns a rank of C. It has a couple of nice abilities, but they're just too conditional to be used consistently. If you luck into plenty of draw effects, then its inherited becomes very nice, but I wouldn't count on it when opening your packs. Garurumon X joins the other level 5 so far at B. It can follow up with a second attack from a lower level Digimon, allowing you to take out an opposing Mon and then swing at security, or even get 2 swings at security if you have a decent enough attacker underneath. It's also an amazing target for the X antibody evolution effect, netting you 2 attacks at 8k and bouncing a Digimon to boot. Greymon X sadly doesn't live up to its companions and breaks the chain of B ranks by only making it to C. All the red and yellow tamers are also rare, so chances are you won't have enough to really profit off of the effect. However, the DP boost can come from any tamer, so it might serve to just be a chunky body, but I wouldn't expect much out of this card. Magna Drone X is a 12k that can swing twice. Sure, it costs you a security to do it, but it still helps close out games and as such earns a B. With an X antibody early enough in the game, it can do some real damage when you evolve into it, but that requires a bit of luck to pull off. Dino Tigermon gets a B by being a dual color card that can fairly reasonably get itself online. The downside is that the cards it needs to support it are kinda bad, but at least it lets you get some value out of having to play them. It also deals with blockers pretty well. Greymon is a card that's hard to consider using, and so gets an F. It has an okay body and can find you an X antibody option, but Alphamon is rare and just isn't good enough to justify running a card whose main purpose is supporting Alphamon. It's probably going to lose out to almost every other level 5 you've pulled, but technically is still okay as filler. Alphamon sadly disappoints and honestly gets an F. It's at the lower end of DP for a level 6, and it will probably get to de-digivolve something when you evolve into it, but after that, triggers will be few and far between. Without being able to consistently use this every turn, it's just not impactful enough to run when there are so many good level 6 Digimon in this set. Raidenmon manages to get itself an A. You're more than likely going to have at least one of its support cards, and in sealed, that's enough. Because you can digivolve this off of any of your level 6 Digimon, and there are a good few 2-color level 6 Digimon, you realistically only need to get one of its components underneath to start turning its abilities on. You can even add them in later for a cost of 1 memory if you don't have them in trash at the time, and it lets you take advantage of their pretty strong inherited effects. It's a little too demanding to make this an S, but set it up well and it's going to be a huge pain in your opponent's backside. Mekumon sits pretty at B. Playing itself out of security is great in a more tempo/aggression based format like sealed, and there's plenty of Digimon to benefit from the inherited effect. A perfectly fine level 4. Drakmon is kind of a weak card here. Its end of attack effect is just quite hard to get value from, and so I don't rate it highly. Being able to reanimate a body narrowly helps it escape from F and get a rank of C, and it can do some okay things with the dex line, but it likely won't make the final cut. Ragwellmon is just pretty garbage in this format and gets an F. 4-cost evolution for a 12k with no immediate value is just bad. Its on play will never net you anything higher than a level 5, while also giving your opponent a huge amount of memory, and the chances of pulling off the setup for a DNA Digivolution here are slim to none. This card is just wishful thinking on paper, don't play it. Tai and Kari get an A. It's very easy for them to start gaining you memory and tipping the scales of advantage in your favour, and the reduction of your opponent's security Digimon's DP makes some riskier attacks a lot safer, allowing you to be overall more aggressive. You only need one red or yellow Digimon and your whole team benefits from this boost too, so it's a pretty good card to include that will really put the opponent at a disadvantage. Matt and Sora are definitely playable at C because they provide a not too demanding way of gaining extra memory, but the opportunity for them to use their other effect is narrow, and realistically they're replaceable by most other tamers. Kiyoshiro Higashima Tarai, on top of being a pain to pronounce, is also an A rank card. It's the only memory tamer in the set, which really helps its playability and can provide you some pretty easy card draw. I'd almost certainly run one of these if I pulled one. TK and Izzy join Matt and Sora down at C and are probably the worst of their tamer cycle. They have an easy way to get their memory gain online, but the secondary effect just doesn't really do much. Still playable for the memory gain, but that's all they've got going for them. Mimi and Joe make it to B. They're going to very often be gaining you additional memory and provide you with a neat little bonus for attacking opposing Digimon. It's not much, but it's nice. Cool Boy is cool indeed and earns the rank of B. It's a cheap 2-drop that will find a lot of Digimon, and what we've already established is probably the most important option in the format. Sure, it's never going to gain you memory or draw cards, but I'd be happy to run one of these as a small consistency boost to find my good stuff and get my X antibody synergies online. Gaia Force Zero is a powerhouse card and an easy A. This card will delete every level 6 and lower Digimon in the set, provided they don't have a DP boost, and will often only cost you 6 memory. The secondary part of the effect is pretty meh and not too important, but out of security it's just original Gaia Force, automatic include in any deck. Metal Storm is almost as good as Gaia Force, but not quite. Still joins it at A rank though. It's a well-costed removal for the majority of Digimon in the format that activates out of security. Its secondary effect is better than Gaia Force's, but still pretty fringe. Still a very good pull though that significantly ups the power of your deck. Now on the opposite side of things, we have Sunrise Buster down at F. This option needs you to have both red and yellow cards in play to use, and as previously established, every tamer it needs to work is at rare. This card is rarely going to actually do anything other than be a harder to cast Flare Rock Soul, and I just don't see a deck existing that is worth adding to. Grandis is a slight improvement up at C, able to potentially prevent a lethal attack when checked out of security. If you have Insectoids, this is a great card that basically lets you delete a Digimon for 4 memory, but the limited number of bugs here means it's mostly just going to be an overpriced needle spray. Digitalize of Soul is quite a gamble, and I can't bring myself to give it more than a C. There are just enough X antibody Digimon to make it possible to include and can help with some harder to use synergies, but ultimately you're still paying 5 memory to potentially do nothing. Not good, but fun. Lastly today we have Metal Impulse, which sits comfortably at C. It's dual color removal that has a significant cost of trashing cards from hand, which is, well, pretty bad. It can be fine late game when you have cards to spare, or if you went heavy into the Dex or Grand Drachmon lines, which again I really advise against, but draw it early and it can be costly to use. Still, beggars can't be choosers, and removal is removal, so technically playable, but if you have other ways to delete Digimon, I'd choose them instead. And that concludes our look at the rare cards. Let me know what you think. Any Dexmon fans that have slowly built a hatred for me over the course of this series, feel free to pop up in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the final installment of this review, where we go to the amazing fantasy land of pulling super rares and secret rares in our sealed ball. Thanks for watching.